now an exciting look behind the scenes into the making of a feature film.
Are primarily Chicano. That heritage is currently being translated into a series of murals under the direction of local artist Charlie Felix. It's called Chicanoglyphics. Felix designs many of the paintings and the preliminary sketches. The youth of the barrio then lay in the colors. The result of their joint effort is in a series of modern murals whose bright colors and tones reflect the proud Mexican culture. Channel 7 salutes artist Felix and the kids of the Estrada courts and the efforts that might have otherwise been given to less positive activity. Chicanoglyphics is a whole new concept which has motivated both young and old into beautifying their own communities to achieve a positive image in the new era of the Chicano movement, the 1970s. The philosophy of Chicanoglyphics is not to destroy the barrio, but to restore the unity and morale of the people of the community.
This has been a KABC TV editorial presented by Don B. Curran, Vice President and General Manager. Copies are available care of this station.
President Nixon's attorneys today asked federal judge John Sirica to throw out the Senate Watergate Committee's request for the White House tapes. The attorneys argued that the president was answerable only to one constitutional proceeding, impeachment by Congress. Attorney General Elliot Richardson canceled a speech-making appearance in Texas today because of what he said was the most pressing national business. That was widely taken to mean the question of Vice President Agnew and his possible links to political corruption now under investigation by a grand jury in Baltimore. Agnew's attorneys are expected to go to court this week to challenge the grand jury's authority to receive evidence against an incumbent vice president who is not impeached.
To anybody who's watching their pennies, and who isn't these days, it's reassuring to know Terry disposable towels are now the same regular price as most ordinary paper towels. And Terry is still the same strong paper towel it's always been. Inside Terry's 4 thirsty layers, there's a tough nylon netting, which makes your pennies go a lot further. Terry towels, it can go through a lot and come back for lots more. Under the hoods of some of the great performance cars, you'll find some of the best piston engines in the world. Cars like the Jaguar XJ6, the Porsche 914 1.7, the Mercedes 450 SLC. And under the hood of this performance car, you'll find the Mazda rotary engine, an engine that can beat these cars at their own game. You don't have to pay a fortune for this performance.
The thrill is back, Mazda performs.
Henry Kissinger today made his first international appearance as Secretary of State. Kissinger spoke here in New York at the annual meeting of the United Nations General Assembly. We have details from ABC's Herbert Kaplow.
It was quite a place for a coming-out party. After 4.5 years, more or less behind the scenes, Henry Kissinger now was going public. First today, a courtesy call on Secretary General Waldheim. Then into the General Assembly chamber and a nod to the Kissinger rooting section. The boss's daughter, Tricia Nixon Cox, Kissinger's parents, a long way from the horror of Nazism they once knew. The new Secretary of State took his place, the representatives of the 135 member nations around him, wondering how this man of power would regard them and their organization.
I come before you today, confirmed in office but 2 days ago, as probably the world's most junior foreign minister. That President Nixon should ask me, as my first official act, to speak here for the United States reaffirms the importance that my country attaches to the values and the ideals of the United Nations.
Then Kissinger crossed the street to the U.S. delegation's headquarters. Inside, he was confronted by about 20 people looking for more action on missing American POWs.
Dr. Shields, you're quite right. Our leverage is not what it used to be. But whatever leverage we have, we will use to the fullest. I know what you're going through. I think there may be some progress on the exhumation of those that we know about. But that is, of course, only part of the problem.
Then a reception for African diplomats. Tomorrow, there'll be a similar gathering for Arab leaders. Wednesday for Latin Americans. The new Secretary of State making sure no one feels slighted in the sensitive world of diplomacy. Herbert Kaplow, ABC News in New York.
There was news of fighting from several fronts in Indochina today. A South Vietnamese outpost at La Minh, held by about 400 Rangers, reportedly was overrun by communist troops. If the reports are confirmed, it's the largest South Vietnamese loss since the January ceasefire agreement was signed. In Laos, where a ceasefire agreement was signed just 10 days ago, North Vietnamese and Pathet Lao troops attacked at least 3 government positions. The attacks are apparently part of an effort by the communists to grab more land before a new coalition government is formed. And in Cambodia, rebel forces ambushed a supply convoy on the Mekong River. 1 freighter was set on fire. 8 other ships made it to safety. Russian Communist Party leader Leonid Brezhnev said today that last June, the Soviet Union offered to sign a non-aggression treaty with the People's Republic of China, but Brezhnev said the Chinese leadership didn't even take time to respond to the proposal. The Chilean Foreign Ministry said today that the United States has extended diplomatic recognition to the new military junta. Spokesmen at the State Department say, however, that the U.S. Embassy in Santiago has been told to continue relations with Chile, which is not recognition. Meanwhile, the junta continues to round up supporters of the Allende government. ABC's Charles Murphy reports.
Every day, the city's neighborhoods are cordoned and searched. The Army was looking for what it calls extremists, hunting down the important members of the Allende government and the many foreigners who came to Chile to take part in Allende's revolution or for asylum. The soldiers were also looking for arms, and they were also looking for literature. Quite a few intellectuals live in the area being searched. Soldiers kicked in doors and ransacked libraries. Contents were thrown out the window or were brought down in elevators. Then the books were burned. One fire was fueled by Allende's speeches to the Congress, by writings of Lenin and Mao Zedong and other Marxists.
I think it's a bad book.
We
don't need that.
Are you trying to get rid of all communist and Marxist literature?
I think it's possible that.
But you would like to?
I prefer don't answer your question.
William Lawrence, a biologist from California, was among those whose apartment was searched. Soldiers went through his possessions thoroughly after learning he did not have his passport with him.
I'm afraid, and I've been ever since Tuesday the 11th, when they started the allanamientos, I've been in a state of sort of nervous hope, but waiting for this to come. That's all.
You expected this?
Yes.
Others who did not have proper identification or seemed suspicious were also arrested. Every day, several hundred are brought to a soccer stadium. A junta leader said 7,000 were here. The government took members of the press on a partial tour. Newsmen saw several hundred detainees in bleachers, but they were not permitted to see the thousands more being kept below. Some of those released from the stadium have told of seeing police brutally treat detainees. Some of the internees were being given quick haircuts. The hair was cut fairly short. Long hair is frowned on here now. Journalists were not permitted to talk to the detainees, but some information was exchanged by shouting. The detainees complained about the food and medical attention, but their main complaint was the long wait for processing. The journalists threw cigarettes to the prisoners, and there was a scramble for them. This sort of thing is bound to bring down criticism on the Chilean army from the rest of the world, or parts of it. But at this point, I don't think the Chilean army really cares what the rest of the world thinks. This is Charles Murphy, ABC News in Santiago, Chile.
We've got so much to be thankful for, because we've got our health. When you got your health, you got just about everything. Of course, it helps if you work at it. We eat good food. Heaven knows we get enough exercise. And we take Geritol every day. With Geritol, we're sure we're getting enough iron and a bunch of good vitamins. No, we don't have a barrel of money, but we got something money can't buy. Because when you got your health, you got just about everything.
Geritol, every day.
Shaving rubs me the wrong way. In fact, you rub me the wrong way. I don't know what to do about you, but I know what to do about shaving. Aquavelva aftershave. Aquavelva not only cools and refreshes your face, it's got a skin conditioner in it that makes your face feel good. To you and to her.
Aquabelva. It does a lot more than just smell nice.
Now that guy knows what he's talking about.
Aquabelva. It does a lot more than just smell nice.
If he only knew when to stop talking.
The gasoline dealers' protest against Phase 4 price control spread to new areas today. Several hundred stations closed down or refused to sell gasoline in the Indianapolis and Washington, D.C. areas, while shutdowns continued in Northern California. Meanwhile, President Nixon intervened personally in the conflict today. ABC White House correspondent Tom Jarrell reports.
Gasoline dealers will be able to legally raise their prices at the pumps by the end of this week. Faced with stations closing and the prospect of some customers running dry, the president prodded the Cost of Living Council into moving faster on a study which will permit price increases. The level is not yet announced, but it's expected to be anywhere from 1 to 3 cents a gallon, with a provision for further increases in the future. The gasoline prices, frozen since August 17th, should be thawed by the weekend. Even as the president was working out the controversy over gasoline prices, he entered another by endorsing the recommendations of an advisory panel on timber and the environment. The members of a 2-year presidential study commission strolled on the south lawn of the White House with the president as he explained to them the history behind some of the trees growing there. These trees are secure enough, but the commission recommended there be a substantial increase in the cutting of trees in the nation's public forest lands, a proposal which was quickly attacked by conservationists, claiming it would doom future generations to a serious timber shortage. As the cold weather approaches, the White House is facing yet another shortage for the nation, heating oil. The president has on his desk a recommendation he impose a mandatory distribution system on oil to make sure all sections of the country get their fair share. Action on that, like the gasoline price problem, may be accelerated beyond the administration's original timetable. Tom Jarrell, ABC News at the White House.
This is Bill Matney. On the day President Nixon moved to ease the pressure on gasoline retailers, scores of stations in Washington and Maryland shut down their pumps. The independent dealers are protesting Phase 4 price controls, which allow gasoline companies to raise wholesale prices while preventing retailers from passing the extra cost along to the public. The dealers contend they need a 10 cents profit on every gallon of gas sold to stay in business. Today's shutdown was not total, however, and the reasons for closing down or staying open reflected the dealers' dilemma.
We can't make it with the prices we're getting for the gas.
How bad is it?
I don't know. I'm losing between $1,800 and $2,000 a month by staying open pumping gas for the prices I'm getting.
I know at this location, if we close down for a week, we just be out of business. So therefore, I decided that we would stay open.
With the present price structure, I don't think they can afford to open because they're going to be out of business in 60 days at these prices. We can't afford to absorb all these costs. There is just no way.
You're really seeing a prelude to what can happen if this situation is not remedied, because these stations are going to be forced to close down. They're all going to be just like this because they won't be able to afford to stay open if the present situation is maintained.
Many of the independent retailers in the greater Washington area say they will not accept a piecemeal solution from the Cost of Living Council. They would prefer, ideally, a total lifting of controls. And a spokesman for the Gasoline Retailers Association says a nationwide shutdown could occur as early as next week if the council's decision is unacceptable. Bill Matney, ABC News, Washington.
Postmaster General Elmer Klassen said today he will seek an across-the-board increase in postal rates to take effect next January to include an increase in first-class mail from 8 cents to 10 cents. Klassen said the increase will be formally presented tomorrow to the Postal Rate Commission.
We have succeeded in creating a unique new wine, a dry wine, with a whisper of sweetness. New Gallo Rhine wine from Ernest and Giulio Gallo. From the finest vineyards, the finest grapes are chosen. Wine masters marry these grapes to create this unique and delicious Gallo Rhine wine. Now enjoy this dry wine with a whisper of sweetness. Gallo Rhine, the new premium wine from Ernest and Giulio Gallo. Your father's father's father asked for it. Your father's father asked for it. Your father asked for it.
And today, more fathers ask for it than ever before. Mothers, too. Generation after generation, quality has made Pennzoil the asked-for motor oil. We think it's a shame that some people can't sleep because of their mattress. So we want to tell them about Sealy Posturepedic, the mattress designed in cooperation with leading orthopedic surgeons. And please listen to this. Posturepedic promises no morning backache from sleeping on a too soft mattress. Sealy Posturepedic, the unique back support system. We don't like to see you like this.
Hey, Star. Hey, have an El Producto. Check out that aroma. That's how you can tell the quality of a cigar, you know. Quality, sir, is in the flavor. The aroma. Hey, Rep. Yeah. I say that you can tell the quality of an El Producto by the aroma. And I say by the flavor. What do you say? Come on, tell them.
Oh, well, you're both right. But the thing about an El Producto is it's mild.
El Producto cigars. You'll call them like you smoke them.
Mild.
In other news, the Tax Assessment Appeals Board in Orange County, California, today ordered President Nixon or his attorney to appear at a hearing on October 26 to explain why the assessment on the Western White House should not be raised. The action followed various complaints that the property is undervalued and the taxes on it too low. The National Park Service says it wants to abandon its program of fighting beach erosion because the program is expensive and it just doesn't work. If Congress accepts the proposal, beach erosion projects will be halted at such areas as Fire Island in New York, North Carolina's Outer Banks, and California's Point Reyes. More American wives are working now than ever before, the director of the Census Bureau told a Senate subcommittee today. Vincent Baraba reported that 40 out of every 100 wives hold jobs, compared to 25 out of 100 in 1950. The Senate today, by a vote of 81 to 4, approved a 50% increase in federal funds for the school lunch program. The House earlier approved a 25% increase, and a compromise must be worked out before the measure goes to the White House. Nobody wants to take a pay cut, and Navy pilots trained for combat are fighting back against loss of flight pay. They see it as poor economy. ABC's Bill Wardham has a report from the Naval Air Station at Pensacola, Florida.
Earlier this year, an economy-minded Congress cut off flight pay for all Navy pilots above the rank of commander who no longer flew. Since that congressional decision, the number of young pilots resigning has tripled. And among those whose pay was cut, captains and above, the resignations have gone up 400%.
For me personally, it was a straw that broke the camel's back. I think it's almost a breach of faith, of contract. When I came into aviation, I expected to get this bonus pay for being an aviator for the rest of my career. And that's the way I understood it, and now it's being taken away. Right now, captains have lost their flight pay. The mood of the Navy right now, or the mood of the country is, it appears to me, is to the captains is just the first step. Next will be commanders and then lieutenant commanders like myself. I think that anybody that gets to the grade of captain should get an increase in pay rather than a cut in salary.
It sounds like a bad case of sour grapes, but there is much more to it than that. The pilots are embittered and disillusioned, and scores of men who had planned to make the Navy their career are now resigning. For almost 20 years, flight pay has been given to Navy pilots because their work is hazardous, because of long disruptions in family life due to sea duty, and as an incentive to stay in the Navy and ignore all those higher paid jobs with civilian airlines. In fact, the Navy calls flight pay career incentive pay. While junior officers have not yet had their pay cut, their confidence in the future has been shaken, and they're now getting out of the Navy at the rate of $50 a month. These are Naval Aviation cadets at Pensacola, Florida. It will cost the Navy more than $500,000 per man to turn these cadets into fully trained pilots. The Navy needs to keep 52% of these pilots. It is now able to retain only 43%. And if the pay cut is not restored, the retention rate is predicted to drop to 38%. Senior officers are seriously worried.
It is a crisis situation for the Navy, and that I would like to make perfectly clear that we do consider it a crisis situation, and we are going to have to take extreme measures to correct from the situation we find ourselves now.
The Navy is fighting back with a compromise plan for flight pay. It should be economical because it will not extend over as many years as the former system. And it should remove most of the ill feeling because captains will get back some of their pay and junior officers will get more. Whether or not the plan succeeds is now up to Congress. Bill Werdum, ABC News, at Pensacola Naval Air Station in Florida.
Stock prices continue to climb on Wall Street today in heavy trading. On the New York Stock Exchange, the Dow Jones Industrial Average climbed nearly 9 points. Standard & Poor's Index was up 0.16. The American Stock Exchange Index rose 0.86. Howard will be back with tonight's comment in a moment.
Two deep moral purposes underlie the Watergate hearings and the court proceedings. One is to protect the citizen against tyrannical government, and the other is to establish that desirable ends do not justify illegitimate means. Watching Howard Hunt today, I began to wonder if both principles are not being violated to his damage. Despite his flamboyant novels, he is a mere espionage technician trained by his government to do clandestine acts on orders. In this affair, he had good reason to think that his orders came from the very highest sources possible, the White House and the Attorney General, the first law officer of the nation. Despite circumstances like those that would seem to be mitigating, he was sentenced provisionally to 40 years, more than a gangster gets. He was separated from his motherless children. He was locked in solitary confinement, as the worst criminals are, then jailed with others who robbed and beat him. The end the court sought was desirable. It was to force information from Howard Hunt. But what does that do to the proposition that the end does not justify the means? He, too, is a citizen to be protected from tyrannical government. The court is an arm of government, forbidden by the Constitution from inflicting cruel and unusual punishment. If his punishment has not been cruel, out of proportion to his crime, what is? We run the constant danger in this emotional affair of violating principle to establish it. That may make sense in Russia, but it doesn't here. Harry?
Thank you, Howard. That's tonight's news and a comment. I'm Harry Reasoner. Good night.
Amana refrigerators give you lots of freezer storage for meat and other foods. Some people like the freezer on the bottom. Others like the freezer on the side. Sometimes it's best to have the freezer on the top. Wherever you want your freezer, you'll get all the Amana features, like this refrigerator within a refrigerator that keeps meat fresher longer because super cold air surrounds the outside without drying out the meat. Whether you want your freezer on the bottom, side, or top, buy Amana.
Got a tissue? Alice, you carry your denture adhesive with you? Well, I'm a worrier. I never know when I'll need more. You don't need more adhesive. You need my adhesive. Denture Grip. Holds up to 10 hours.
Denture Grip, the first adhesive powder made with plastic. Long-lasting plastic that holds hour after hour.
Still carrying your adhesive? Nope. I leave my Denture Grip at home.
Denture Grip holds up to 10 full hours.
The New Orleans Saints play the Dallas Cowboys in NFL Monday Night Football. Coming up next, right afterwards, Terry Webster, posing as a prison inmate, gets trapped in a prison riot. On The Rookies, tonight on ABC.
A guy in a $13,000 sports car just challenged you. It's nice just to know what your Mazda can do.
The thrill is back.
Getting on the freeway can be a problem, but your new rotary engine Mazda makes it easy.
The thrill is back. Mazda performs.
You are now a PSA grinning bird, the unofficial state bird of California. You will fly from Los Angeles to San Francisco every hour on the half hour from 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. You will fly more often at peak periods. Understand? Good. Now, when I snap my fingers, you will wake up smiling. Oh, just fooling around. It worked. It worked. It worked. Oh.
Class is going bowling in a fur coat.
is making your marriage and your wife work.
Class is a liberated woman.
Sexy, strong,
Moxie, sticking by your friends.
Class is having all your teeth.
We think Tuborg beer's got class, and now it's made in America. With a taste of the old country, but light like American. At American prices, too. Tuborg beer, it's got class.
Class is marrying all 5 daughters.
Tonight at 11, E. Howard Hunt at the Watergate hearings, a threat of a big gas boycott in L.A., and how to wrestle a girl in a bikini. I'm Judd Hambrick. Football is next.
Department S tonight at 10.
The support of a new bureaucracy. Costs of administering estates would skyrocket because of the need to employ private appraisers to do battle with the bureaucrats.
This has been a recorded reply to a KNXT editorial. Speaking was Attorney Matthew S. Ray.
Laurie, you're putting woolite in the washer?
Sure. See, my new knit from David Crystal had this tag, machine washable in woolite. You know, many manufacturers recommend woolite because woolite in cold water safely cleans fine machine washables without shrinking or fading. I use woolite for this knit dress. All fine machine washables. See?
Beautiful. Woolite in the washer. Great idea.
Try woolite in your washer, liquid or powder. Safely cleans fine machine washables.
Some women are always changing their look, but not me. I know how I look best, so I keep it that way. That's why I like Clairol Cosmetics. With those far-out lipsticks, I look like a clown. They're for kids, but I'm an adult. And Clairol lipsticks are timeless. Classic, down-to-earth colors to choose from.
Clairol lipstick from a timeless collection of Clairol Cosmetics for the adult cult.
Now that's me.
Century 21 Real Estate. Faster action, better service, more results. Century 21, a sign of the times.
The big news continues now on KNXT Channel 2.
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite and Eric Severide in Washington, Daniel Shore in Washington, Richard C. Hotlett at the United Nations, Bruce Hall in Americus, Georgia, Ike Pappas in Santiago, Chile, Morton Dean in New York, and David Culhane in New York.
Good evening. The Senate Watergate hearings resumed today after a 7-week recess with admitted conspirator Howard Hunt as the lead-off witness. And Hunt implicated former White House advisor Charles Colson in the scandal. Daniel Shore has the details.
After a quarter-century of missions impossible from Paris to the Bay of Pigs to the Watergate, here was Howard Hunt, the silent spy, ready now to testify in public for the first time. 2 of his 4 children, their mother dead in a plane crash, watched as the veteran CIA agent talked first not of what he has done, but of what was done to him.
I have been incarcerated for 6 months. For a time, I was in solitary confinement. I have been physically attacked and robbed in jail. I have suffered a stroke. I have been transferred from place to place, manacled and chained, hand and foot. I am isolated from my 4 motherless children. Beyond all this, I am crushed by the failure of my government to protect me and my family, as in the past it has always done for its clandestine agents. I deeply regret that I had any part in this affair. I think it was an unfortunate use of executive power, and I am sorry that I did not have the wisdom to withdraw. At the same time, I cannot escape feeling that the country I have served for my entire life, and which directed me to carry out the Watergate entry, is punishing me for doing the very things it trained and directed me to do.
What Hunt was not willing to do before, he was ready to do now, to implicate former presidential special counsel Charles Colson. He said it was Colson who ordered him to fabricate cables linking President Kennedy to the assassination of South Vietnamese President Diem. Colson who approved the plan to get a psychiatrist's records on Daniel Ellsberg, and Colson who pushed the intelligence plan that led to the Watergate break-ins. Hunt quoted what Liddy told him after a meeting with Colson held in January of last year.
He said, quote, "I think I may have done us some good," unquote.
At that time, what was your interpretation of that message?
I realized that he had been speaking with Mr. Colson about the gemstone operation.
Why? Why did you draw that interpretation from the statement, I think I've done us some good.
Because that was the only common subject concerning which he could have done us any good.
So your testimony is, as far as you know, although he was aware of the overall gemstone plan, he was not aware of the Watergate break-in.
Yes, sir.
Thompson questioned Hunt closely on his belated recollection of Colson's link with political espionage, Hunt denying that recollection was influenced by his effort to get his guilty plea changed to innocent. Republican Senator Baker used his 10 minutes to recount Hunt's long record of CIA assignments and to question Hunt about continued links with the CIA while performing his political assignments.
Did the agency from their personnel office supply you with that information?
With some information, yes, sir.
Did you use that as a basis for recruiting?
As a basis for attempted recruiting, yes, sir.
But it was used for the purpose it was sought for, that is, to identify people who might be useful to your assignment at the White House.
Exactly.
Did they also supply you with logistical support, with wigs, with false identification papers, with cameras, with tape recorders, with photographic devices, photographic processing and printing? Were those things all supplied to you by the agency?
Yes, sir.
Did anyone ever protest that the agency ought not to be involved in this?
Not within my hearing.
Before returning to prison for the night, Hunt had a chance for a brief reunion with his daughter, Lisa, 22, and his son, St. John, 19. Often during this first day of public testimony, Hunt had coughed or yawned from fatigue. But it was almost over now. The committee staff estimates that he'll be on the stand for about another half day. When Hunt returns tomorrow, Senator Gurney plans to follow up Senator Baker's questions about a possible CIA link with questions about a possible double agent. Hunt's main new testimony, more deeply implicating his friend and sponsor Charles Colson, that's being left largely to the Democrats to explore. Daniel Shaw, CBS News, in the Senate caucus room in Washington.
Only new Mighty Dog from Carnation is pure beef. All leading canned dog foods contain some byproducts, but new Mighty Dog is pure beef, no byproducts. No wonder it smells good and tastes better than any leading canned dog food. It's fully nourishing with single-serving cans that end leftovers. New Mighty Dog, pure beef, no byproducts.
Greyhound's got quite a youth movement going these days. Young people are finding Greyhounds a great, inexpensive way to get closer to our country. Along the way, they found that Greyhounds changed a lot, too. New terminals, new buses that are roomier and more comfortable, really easy to ride. You know what? Maybe they know something you don't.
Henry Kissinger today challenged the United Nations to strengthen its peacekeeping role in the world. In his first public appearance since being sworn in as Secretary of State, Kissinger told the General Assembly that the United States is ready to consider how the Security Council can take a central role in future peacekeeping operations. More on Kissinger's UN appearance from Richard C. Hotley.
The General Assembly waited eagerly for what Kissinger had to say. Already an almost legendary figure for his dramatic secret diplomacy with China, Russia, and Vietnam, he had the world wondering whether the new policy of détente, the relaxation of tension pursued with the Soviet Union, meant more of the same. The Chinese and others have their doubts. Kissinger spoke to reassure them that the United States wants neither to control the world nor to divide it with someone else.
We have no desire for domination. We will oppose, as we have consistently opposed throughout this century, any nation that chooses this path. We have not been asked to participate in a condominium. We would reject such an appeal if it were made. We will never abandon our allies or our friends. The strengthening of our traditional ties is the essential foundation for the development of new relationships with old adversaries. We will work for peace through the United Nations as well as through bilateral relationships.
The great practitioner of the power balance declared that a stable peace should rest instead on shared aspirations. It was a cautious, restrained speech by a man starting off slowly. Philosophical rather than practical, one delegate called it. There were no bold proposals. On the Middle East, for instance, he simply repeated the basic U.S. position that no peace can be imposed from the outside, that the parties must come together. For the rest of his time in New York, Kissinger is now working as he does best, in private meetings with foreign ministers who want to know specifically what his general words mean for them. Richard C. Hottelet, CBS News, United Nations.
Russia claims to have made a concrete offer for better relations with China. Party boss Leonid Brezhnev said Moscow offered last June to sign a non-aggression treaty with Peking, but China has not replied. In South Vietnam's Central Highlands, communist forces are thought to have scored their biggest victory since the January ceasefire. They stormed and apparently overran a government ranger base at Le Minh near Pleiku. Radio contact with the 300 to 400 defenders has been lost, and no word yet on their fate. Chile's new military regime warned today that extremists acting against the armed forces will be executed by firing squad. An American couple returned from Chile over the weekend, however, said executions already have been carried out in and around Santiago's International Soccer Stadium. That, said a Chilean spokesman, is just a false story. Ike Pappas was there as newsmen finally were allowed inside that stadium, where some reports say as many as 25,000 suspected Allende loyalists have been held.
When newsmen were finally admitted, they saw only 1,000 or so prisoners sitting bunched in the end zones. Where then were the rest? Guards would not answer that question. There have been charges from former prisoners that people have been tortured, beaten, and executed here. Newsmen saw no evidence of this brutality, but they were not permitted to inspect the entire stadium, to go beneath the stands and below the field level to the areas where the prisoners eat, sleep, and are questioned. Reporters were also not allowed to directly question prisoners. The prisoners often shouted, "They are treating us badly," but they gave no details. When newsmen got too close, guards pushed them back. The prisoners wanted cigarettes, and the reporters tossed what they had into the stands. There are nearly twice as many prisoners in the stadium now as there were in the first days of the coup, an indication that arrests are taking place daily. Search and seize missions, such as this one, which began yesterday morning, have become commonplace. Ike Pappas, CBS News at Santiago, Chile.
Got a tissue? Alice, you carry your denture adhesive with you? Well, I'm a worrier. I never know when I'll need more. You don't need more adhesive. You need my adhesive. Denture Grip. Holds up to 10 hours.
Denture Grip. The first adhesive powder made with plastic. Long-lasting plastic that holds hour after hour.
Still carrying your adhesive? Nope. I leave my Denture Grip at home.
Denture Grip. Holds up to 10 full hours.
Vinyl car tops look great when they're wet, but in the short time it takes to drive home, they're dull again. Well, I've discovered how you can keep vinyl looking beautiful with Scott's Liquid Gold Countertop Polish. Just spray it on for a rich, wet look. And it lasts a lot longer than water. Liquid Gold Countertop cleans away scuffs, dirt, and dust.
Hey, Mom, let's take it around the block to show it off.
President Nixon has ordered the Cost of Living Council to speed up and decide before the end of the week on a retail gasoline price increase. In spite of the president's action, many gas stations protesting the price situation were still closed today in Northern California, Indianapolis, and the suburbs of Washington, D.C. Another raise in postage rates is in the wind. The Postal Service says it's going to ask approval for a 2-cent increase in first class and airmail rates and percentage increases in other classes of mail effective January 5th. The Senate today passed a school lunch bill pumping $300 million more into the program than the $1.5 billion the administration wanted. The measure, which was rushed through in order to help schools which have dropped or cut back lunch programs, now goes to conference with the House. In the wake of the Russian wheat deal, thousands of farmers who sold their crops early lost out on potential profits to speculators. Now a similar situation may be developing through the southern cotton belt. Bruce Hall has a report from Georgia.
That is cotton they are selling, and they're selling it for the highest price since the Civil War. Today the price reached 99 cents a pound. It is expected to break the $1 a pound tomorrow. But the $1 a pound price will not be paid to the farmer. It will go instead to the speculator on cotton futures in New York, Chicago, and Memphis. This is young blooming cotton, ready to be picked. It is almost like a field of white gold to the speculators. But to the farmer who planted, nursed, and will harvest this crop, it will only bring an average of 32 cents a pound. The farmer sold the crop before it was planted. That is called forward contracting, and the farmer is bound sometimes a year in advance to a specific price. The procedure is legal, but now the farmers are in near rebellion. Some are threatening massive court action. If they would succeed, it could throw the nation's whole commodity market into chaos.
I just don't like the idea of somebody doubling the money on me and making 100% profit off of me. Somebody's making it, and you can't help but feel like you've been cheated.
Most people who bought the crops are located in small offices along Front Street in Memphis. They buy and sell contracts all over the world. They deny making excessive profits, but readily admit making money.
For people like you and a business like yours, has this been a profitable year?
Yes. It has very much so, because we've stayed on our toes and we've kept well informed. And the name of the game is superiority, knowledge, and information over the next man. There's not a whole lot of competition because in this sense, we're young, and most of these guys are much older than we are. And we do try to stay abreast, and we are somewhat of a gambler. You have to be in the commodity business.
The demand for raw cotton is increasing, but this year's crop is at least 6% lower than last year's. Synthetic fibers, which could be used for cotton substitutes, are made from petroleum, but petroleum is also in short supply. Add to these factors the export deals that will send half of this year's cotton crop to countries like China and Japan, and you can see why speculators made more profit than usual. To the American consumer, it all means higher prices for products, like shirts, sheets, towels, and everything else made of cotton. Bruce Hall, CBS News, Americus, Georgia.
In an effort to ease a lumber shortage that has helped boost housing costs, President Nixon today approved a substantial increase in logging in national forests. The recommendation to increase logging, including the controversial practice of clear cutting, came in a report from the President's Timber Task Force. Clear cutting is the practice of cutting down whole areas of timber instead of cutting selectively. Mr. Nixon said the panel determined harm to the environment can be avoided and that fears of this appear to be, quote, unfounded or exaggerated. Conservationists strongly disagree. The task force also said the president should try to cut back the large sale of U.S. timber to Japan. Barrier islands, such as the Outer Banks of North Carolina, are relatively thin strips of land formed by sand deposits from offshore waves. Their shape is constantly shifting because of wave erosion and tidal currents. And for years, the National Park Service has tried unsuccessfully to control this with various projects. Today, in a highly controversial decision, the Park Service said it wants to halt the expensive projects on land under its jurisdiction and let nature work her course. Congress must approve the new policy, but already it has angered coastal property owners and tourist interests.
We're tasting Libby's juices. You can't have any because we're here and you're there. Looks like it. Tastes like it. I think it's avocado. I think I like this better. Better than what? I forgot. This is Libby and Libby and Libby all